Welcome back to Unranked Podcast. Here you have Elijah alongside Grant. We're gonna get into another episode. Michigan faces Illinois this upcoming weekend. Not as a high anticipated game as it was, let's say 2 or 3 weekends ago. They've kind of stumbled a little bit, but that could mean they're ready to kind of step back up and knock us off. So a game that we can't not look ahead too much through as far as with Illinois, with Ohio coming up on the heels. So I'm gonna throw it over to you. How do you feel about the game? How do you feel? I guess this 7-3 team versus a 7-1 team a couple of weeks ago we thought we were facing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think this will be it'd be a good test. Because Illinois, this is not Illinois of like old, or as far as just or like previous teams. Obviously, they're known for being a great football program, but I guess they're like second in total defense, lead the country in interceptions, third in scoring defense. Um, they definitely been doing pretty well on that side of the ball. Obviously, got a very strong run game, so we kind of mirror them to a certain extent. Um, so I think it'd be a good, just kind of like, you know, a test to where, could easily been like like a bad Illinois team. We just kind of walk over and not take that serious. But I actually do like the fact that they're ranked. And it feels like they have like something really going here as a program. So ultimately, it should be a pretty solid test for us, and I'm just looking forward to seeing how we respond as we prepare, for the end of this regular season.
Yeah, no, I would say just one last hurdle we have to get over as far as the march to down to Columbus, the march to Big Ten championship again, and like you said, this is not the same Illinois team as historically speaking.
Yeah,
They have a real deal coach there in Brett Bielema. Was a long term. I'm bet probably 10 years plus down in or up in Wisconsin.
yeah,
We know what he's going to bring. He obviously can coach. He's going to have a good game plan. They're fortunate to have him. I can't imagine him staying around there too long, or he'll have a good program. So
yeah,
we know what they're going to bring. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play good defense, play action, and so it'd be interesting to kind of see what he builds. But I know what we have to do, and that's control the line of scrimmage,
hmm,
keep pounding the ball with Blake Corum. If Edwards is available, keep working him in. If not, Stokes, and just kind of keeping them legs fresh. Because if it takes 45 carries from Blake Corum on to beat Ohio State, then that's what it takes. So I
so
think
be
you
it.
got to keep them legs fresh, execute, hit them plays downfield, so we can 130, 40-yard, 50-yard bomb down the field is going to eliminate 5, 6 carries from Blake on the drive.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of the recipe we have to do. Is I hope we go in there, keep him fresh, and just kind of sharpen our tools as far as trying to hit some of these deep balls, get a little bit of confidence of that going, and we know what to expect from the defense. I want them to step up and play hover around that zero mark again. Sub 10, sub 14 points. That's what
Yeah,
that's what they seem to bring week in and week out.
yeah. And I think one thing just to kind of um, look at or even add to is like that defense is pretty solid, and but one thing is they've only been playing against Big Ten West teams. And granted, saying that we understand how tough the Big Ten is, but there's something to be said about how right now they're in like a 3-way, 4-way tie for first on
Mm-hmm.
that side of the conference, because it lists a lot of the teams that are not you know more like middle of the pack, lower side of the Big Ten. They're just kind of beating up on each other. So it looks like Michigan will kind of be one of their real tests, as far as like from an offense standpoint. I think they ended up only scoring like 9 against Iowa. There's some pretty interesting scores here, as far as who they played and such. But yeah, lost to Indiana by 3, like second game of the season. So they got some pretty interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they respond. Coming against the kind of offense we have. They also add to, they are kind of fighting the injury bug a little bit. Chase, the running back, I believe his name is Chase Brown. Um, he hurt himself on like the second to last play of last week's game. He said he was like limping off, so he might be more like a game time decision. They're pretty depleted at corner. They do have one guy that is solid on one side. That, I've heard people are saying he could be like a potential NFL prospect, but on the other side, they I think they went all the way to like their sixth corner and trying to kind of figure out like who can kind of play consistently on that end of the side of things. And yeah, so that's just something to kind of keep in mind this time of year. As far as just where teams are at, and obviously everybody's kind of banged up to a certain extent, but that'll. I mean, they're saying this guy. I mean, I think he has the most rushing yards in the country, and if he can't go, I mean, that's gonna be a completely different game
Yeah,
than what we were
snake.
expecting. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm just looking here. They lost to Michigan State. They're on our side of the Big Ten.
yeah,
I believe Indiana is on our side of the Big Ten. They beat them by 3, and and a couple, like you said, barely put up 6 points versus Iowa.
yeah,
A couple of these games look pretty bad on paper. And one of those things. So where, Michigan State, they are what they are. They're a middle of the pack at best Big Ten East team, and they go in there and beat them, by 8 points. So I think it's one of those. And I was watching that game actually because I thought, that's one of those games. Just kind of caught my eye, and
I want to see how they would respond, kind of.
yep. So coming off of all the things with Michigan in the tunnel, and so it's kind of interesting. They easily could have fell apart that game as well. So
Yeah,
but with all that being said, I believe in us. I think we're going to go in there and clean them up. Obviously another formidable Big Ten team, and somebody we could kind of. I know a few weeks ago we talked about going there and beating them handily with maybe a 10-win team. That's out of the window. But
right.
going there beating a team that maybe go to the Big Ten championship or at bare minimum an 8-9 win team. So I think just overall I do feel pretty good about it. I'm not overly confident, but I'm not all that worried.
Yeah, I think it's just for how I look at it, it's just an opportunity. I mean, you got a team that's ranked, right? To be able to pick apart our resume, you know, all season long. Um, it's just another opportunity to kind of buffer, strengthen the resume. If you go in there, hopefully you can go in there and do what they're supposed to do, hang 35, 38 on them, pretty much put them to a halt on offense and continue to do what they've been doing a lot of other teams, up to this point. I mean, it is one of those things you can't really deny. Obviously, a lot of it kind of comes down to what happens, the weekend after Thanksgiving. But I mean, this is other things you can just kind of add to it. They tried to say that we haven't, really played tough competition, but we have an opportunity to have two, potentially three, ranked wins, on our resume here coming into the year. So just another way to tune things up. I hope that they continue to just kind of, go after the passing attack. Might be an opportunity to go at it this week with, and just from like a confidence standpoint, right? Like we know they have depleted corners. So, we might kind of see hit on some that, you probably wouldn't hit on against other teams, but just good to see, that connection in game. Like I think Blake Corum was saying it's been hitting on Main Street, but not hitting on State Street. So it's been hitting in practice, but not hitting, hitting over in the big house. So hopefully you can get that from a confidence standpoint, get everybody healthy, or keep everybody healthy, and just continue along through the end of the regular season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not sure. You want to throw out a score prediction?
Yeah, yep. So I'll say with this one, I mean, I think it'll be like a 35-17. I do think, we'll get a good push from them out the gate, throwing a couple of haymakers here and there, some gadget plays. Bielema, I mean, I respect him as a coach. I mean, he had Wisconsin humming for a minute, so I know he's going to have them ready. I just don't think they don't have the talent quite yet to be able to like put together 60 minutes against us right now. But I think we should be like a 35, 38, 17. Be my final prediction.
Yeah, no. So that happened to be pretty spot on to where I was going to be. So no, I'll adjust it a little bit. Go like 30-10. I think we've been consistently hitting, in between our two scores. That seems to be the good
Yep.
spot for us. Where we are, it's nail biter at the beginning, a little closer than it should be, and then we go and make second half adjustments, and kind of like just apply that vice grip a little tighter, and then eventually we break these teams. So I think
Yep.
somewhere in that ballpark, we're right around 30-10, and I look forward to it. Another marching to 11-0, marching down to Columbus, and a lot of exciting things happening. Number 3 team in the college football playoff,
Yep.
marching down to Columbus. potential Heisman Trophy winner. You know, it would be great to go ahead and get that, you know, the little trifecta as far as Heisman Trophy winner, Ohio victory, Big Ten championship, head all, you know, that'd be a perfect little trifecta. And, but, you know, a lot of that, obviously, you have to take care of business this week versus Illinois. And, you know, I look forward to them doing that. Another
100%.
home game, by the way. Another, I feel like
Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, very fortunate on that. It's just, you know, but obviously down in Columbus, that's probably counts as like 3 or 4 road games there. So,
Right.
you know, but just kind of transitioning here over to the Detroit Lions, you know, coming off an exciting victory for the team,
Mm-hmm.
second one of the year, you know, looking for the third, versus a team in the New York Giants, a surprising team this year, you know, a team that, you know, a lot of people thought we would be in a similar ballpark. You know, a lot of people compared us as far as a dynamic running back, unproven coach, unproven quarterback, you know, and, but, you know, somehow we're sitting at 6 and 6, or the 2 and 6, and they're at 7-2, 7-3. So, you know, kind of what do you see about this game heading in this week? I think it's the home game for them. No, it's a road game. It's a road game for them.
Yep.
First of the second time we're going to go to New York. So we also play the
Mm-hmm.
Jets on the road. So,
Yeah, and I think so. I'm just kind of looking at their schedule now, just kind of, just out of curiosity, seeing who they played. Because one thing I did notice was that they kind of struggled a little bit against Houston, and I mean, Houston is like they're a pretty bad football team, like on the verge of like benching their quarterback, like type deal. Um, so yeah, just looking. I mean, they beat the Titans, solid team. Panthers, bad team. Lost to the Cowboys, beat the Bears. Bears are, we see, what they are. Beat the Packers, we know what they are. Stuck out one against the Ravens, beat the Jaguars, lost to the Seahawks, and then, like I said, struggled against the Texans. So I think this is a good opportunity to, kind of, you got all this momentum, right? Two NFC North wins, and the team is like just trending, getting healthy. I think Shark, we did confirm that Shark is still on the team. He practiced this week.
we had a shark spotting.
Yeah, there's been a Shark sighting at practice. Um, so I don't know if exactly if that means he's gonna be ready or whatever that kind of looks like. And throw this little nugget in there too. I think they're saying Jameson Williams will probably be like week after Thanksgiving is what they're thinking for him too. So I think this is really probably about as simple game plan as it can get. I feel like they find a way to be able to stop Saquon. The receivers are pretty depleted. They got Kenny Galladay over there. Maybe he might have a little motivation to play a little bit better since he's playing against us. We wouldn't sign him, give him the money he wanted, but I mean, I think he only has like 1 or 2 catches all season. Been hurt.
Yeah.
They're just very like. I mean, Saquon is literally they didn't put him at the Wildcat. Daniel Jones can run a little bit, but not to the extent that Justin Fields can. I think Danny Jones is a lot more susceptible to like turning the ball over. So I think if they're able to, continue to just improve on defense, Goff just be what he was last week. Hopefully run the ball. Um, they got a shot. They got a shot. I don't think this 7-2 Giants team. They don't scream it, to me about being like that great of a team. I think they just benefited from a pretty easy schedule up to now.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's interesting looking at the dynamic of how these two teams were kind of compared to each other, and then just the execution that they have had compared to the execution that we didn't have. I believe they took Thibodeau, did they not? So they
Yep.
took Thibodeau with a pick, that he easily could be on our team. We really did mirror each other, and just to see them executing for what they do have and us not.
Yep.
So it's kind of the tale of two tales there. So, I also think I've also seen crazy things such as, the Lions potentially still in the hunt for playoff spots, wild card spots. And it is technically mathematically possible. So, but I think I cannot see them getting this game, but I think you have to win this one in order to keep any of that momentum alive. And I think they're still out there trying to win games. I think that's very apparent. So I think, go out there and, it's going to be it's going to be a battle, because I think we struggle stopping the run. Barkley, one of the most dynamic running backs, and it's hard when they'll do interesting things with him. Like you said, put him in a wildcat, pass him the ball, have him pass. It's, it's good. It's kind of it's gonna be hard to key in when they're so many different tools in that in the tool kit for them.
Yeah.
So, I I don't know. I struggle, and then just thinking about them comparing him and Swift, for what people were doing that to a certain degree. Swift has 250 rushing yards on the year, and he had 150 in the first game. So just to show the struggles that he's been through on this season, and us having to rely on Jamal Williams a lot more than we would have anticipated, and all that's kind of coming to a halt here. So I think they do clearly have a shot at this team, because I do believe you. They're probably not as good as that record shows. So I just think it starts with stopping Saquon Barkley and continuing to do the right things. Kicking a field goal, not going for it on fourth and stupid occasions. Not all the time, just not as much. They have made some strides in those decisions, and continuing to let the young guys fly around on defense. The young guys flying around on defense was probably the brightest spot from last week's game. They won that with a bunch of first and second year players. So just kind of hopefully having them step up on the road again. That's kind of how you're going to get it done here. But I do think it is an uphill battle. And then you're obviously, if you're Lions, you can't look ahead, but you do have the Bills coming to town. And you're going to want to probably get one under your belt before you take that beat.
Because I mean that you drop this one, you drop that one, you're really out of it. Like you're not making it. I mean, I think a team, some teams might make it at 9-8, but losing record, that ain't gonna really be able to cut it this time around. But I guess we said it before. I mean, if there's any opportunity to try to snag one, you might be able to drop maybe one more between now and the end of the season. I think this is one of those that you would hope that they can steal. And I think that the defense, they're slowly improving. You got to imagine confidence is pretty high. Okuda, I've been the one talking about how he owed Chase Young half of his signing bonus. Wasn't playing up to par hardly at all. Got hurt. That's always unfortunate. It just happens. You get hurt. You get hurt. It is what it is. But that was the best game I've seen him play yesterday. I mean, he's been. So you imagine you have him playing at a high level, shut off whatever receiver they is even their number one right now, and just make them try to make them like one dimensional to where we can maybe keep Saquon bottled up. And once again, just not making mistakes on offense, and even the offensive side getting a little more healthy over there too. Maybe we can look up and they'll be in a one-score game like they have been the last couple of weeks and actually pulling it out.
I think you do got to give Okuda his credit. He has been resilient. Even at the start of the year, he started out shaky. Game and very inconsistent, I would say. And the one thing about him is he has continued to just keep getting knocked down, stepping back up, and making plays. That it was great to see him make that pick six. And just that is a big confidence booster for a guy who was I'm don't know for sure, but I'm positive he was all Big Ten. And then you're the third pick in the draft, and then you come out and you just fall flat on your face. And to have that moment in your second year in the league, it's it's a big time moment. So if you can build upon that, that might really turn some things around for him. So you're right there, spot on with him. And just like you said, I'm completely drawing a blank on who the top receiver be as well. But he has faced some of the best in the league so far. So you have a lot of that under your belt, and now you're facing a guy that obviously anybody can beat you in the league, but you're facing a guy that isn't Justin Jefferson or isn't Smith Smith with the Eagles or whatever. You're just not. You're facing somebody that you can kind of have confidence against, especially coming off the game you've had. So I'm right there with you, and in Hutch as well. Say this again, but maybe the key is let's just not experiment with him, but let's just have him stand up the rest of the season and see if he is.
It's crazy how that change alone. I mean, I think he's still overrunning plays, but he just slows down a little bit and standing up. I mean, I think that's probably what's to come as far as just like improving throughout the season.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, so I'll go ahead and say, I'm going to be honest with myself here again. I'll probably have to give a score prediction of like 27-17 Giants. Just one of those. You are on the road. They are seem to do have a little bit of momentum there. So,
Yeah.
but I think one of those somewhere in that ballpark for as far as the final score.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go 24-21 Giants. I think it'll be as long as they just continue to play how they played and just tighten up some stuff on defense. I think we can stay in it and stay close. But I just think might just kind of come down to losing on like a last second field goal or maybe just not converting on a long fourth down. But I do think it'll end up kind of being within a one possession game just because I don't believe in them fully. Like I'd have to see them against like they haven't even played the Eagles yet, if I'm not mistaken, and only played the Cowboys. So and lost to them. So I don't think they're all that great. We'll see what happens in due time.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, some good football coming up this weekend.
Yep.
I'm glued on my seat all Saturday and Sunday for that matter as well. Michigan kicks off high noon.
Yep.
Lions kick off at 1, and we'll be back at you on Sunday.
Yep. So.
Peace.